And it was just her. It was just her person that I fell in love with, and she happens to be a woman.
Welcome to the Brown Girl Rising podcast, where authenticity meets empowerment. I'm Urvashi, your host and your guide on this journey of elevating voices, sharing stories, and navigating the journey of resilience. So, let's dive in. Hey guys, welcome to the Brown Girl Rising podcast. This is your host Ush, and today I've got a really special guest. It is an absolute first for me, and I'm really excited, but I'm also really nervous because I know I'm going to say something wrong. I have got Ayesha Joshi on the podcast today with me, and Ayesha is a somatic mindset practitioner. Now, I've been following her journey for a little while now, and all I can say is that when I see her posts, I resonate with pretty much all of it, except for one thing. Ayesha is a queer South Asian woman, and this is so new to me, and she's very aware of this as well. And I'm so excited to meet her. And her passion or her purpose is to just help people with their individuality and help each person realize how special they really are. So, Ayesha, thank you for joining me today. How are you, my love?
Thank you for having me. I feel so honored to be a part of this podcast. I'm good. I'm really good. Yeah. A bit
Good.
nervous, but I'm all right. Have
Question I'm going to ask you today is, what does self-love mean to you? Because I think that is really important for brown women in general, is self-love. So what does it mean to you?
Self-love means to me is loving all parts of yourself. So the good, the bad, the ugly. And especially for South Asian women, I feel like it takes a while to get to that place
Yeah.
because I have to say this. I think self-love and the concept of self-love is a very new age concept. It's not something that we've known before or we've grown up with. And
Oh,
when we think about our heritage and our ancestors and our history as South Asian women and South Asian people, we come from a lot of struggle and strife. And there is a lot of, I feel like our history is so steeped in just survival and surviving. And to get to a point now to be able to talk about self-love is such a privilege. And it's actually a luxury to be able to say, I can indulge in my self-love and self-care practices. Because if you think back even just to our parents' generation, if you think about how we were taught, I don't know about your situation, but I know certainly in my family, we were never taught about self-love and understanding our needs and listening to our emotions and what's important to us. And especially as South Asian women, it's always about everybody else and it's never about you.
mm,
It's never about us. And I think it's important to remember where we've come from and remember
mm,
our stories and remember our history and just really understand that self-love is a privilege to have.
yeah.
To not everybody has that luxury to indulge in self-love and self-care, especially now as well with what's going on in the world. And I just think if you have the privilege to love on yourself, why would you not, you know? And I
Mm,
think we're at such a amazing time right now where we have all of the resources and the information and the people out there to support us on this journey. And just why not utilize that, you know, and make the most of it and just love on yourself and learn to love yourself.
I love that. It's so beautiful. And I love how you explain it. Like, actually, as we as South Asian women, we never had the luxury of that. And even going back to like mum's generation, like, she didn't have a self-love, self-care practice. It was all about the husband, or it was all about the parents or the in-laws. And, you know, who am I? Like, I remember my mum telling me when I was born, like, I was taken straight off her and she was told to go in the kitchen and cook.
Wow.
Like, that's
Yeah.
insane, right?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
insane. You've been on a bit of a journey of healing over the course of however many years. So can you kind of tell us what led to you becoming the somatic mindset practitioner and how you got there?
So I feel like my journey is so varied, but
I
my
mean, yeah, can I
journey.
just say she's lived in South Korea, she's lived in Milan, or else have you? No, in Manchester. Come on.
Well, I've lived in a lot of like when I was younger, we actually moved and traveled a lot as a family.
Were you an army brat?
Uh,
Were you an army brat?
No, I don't know. My parents just decided to move. My dad was just like, okay, we're going to Spain to live for a few years. We're going here now. And
What? The coolest. Yeah. Okay.
that's also shaped a lot of my journey and just how I view the world. I've been very lucky to experience so many different parts of the world and meet so many different people and cultures. But my journey really started when my dad passed away 12 years ago. And he was like the catalyst to everything. And he is the reason that I'm here today.
Mm,
He's a reason that I've just wanted to become a better person, really. When you experience loss or you go through grief or any life-changing moment
mm,
in your life, it really makes you reevaluate everything about your own life, especially when you're so close to death and you experience that firsthand. It opens up so many questions and just like my question was like what am I doing here? What is my purpose? What do I want out of life? And before my dad passed away, I was already in such a bad place just with my, growing up in my childhood, just the things that I had learned and just the way that I felt about myself and the relationships that I had with people were just not so great. So I was
yeah.
already in a bad place. And then when my dad passed away, it just kind of spiraled even further. And yeah, it just made me reassess and reevaluate what I wanted to do with my life. And I really felt like when you go through something like that, when you hit rock bottom, it's like, okay, it can literally go one way or the other.
Mm.
As dark as that sounds, it's really true. And it's like something within me was like, okay, I need to find some light in this and really just do better as a person, like I really reflected on my behavior mostly and like how I was as a
Okay.
person. And I was very selfish. I made a lot of bad decisions. I wasn't the best friend. I wasn't the best daughter. And I don't just mean that lightly. I mean, like, I was doing things and saying things and behaving in a certain way that wasn't, that was negative and damaging
Why
to the people
though?
around me.
What was innate in you to make you behave like that?
It was just this feeling of just not feeling good enough, always being told
Mm,
that I wasn't good enough, always told that I was not going to be anything or amount to anything. It was just that real self-worth piece, just not having any confidence, being really insecure, and having that also feeling that, but then also having that reflected back to you from other people and situations that I'd found myself in. And yeah, that was just kind of how my journey started. And then
So were you a bit of a wild child then, essentially?
basically, yeah.
So was I in my 20s.
Yes, I was that typical like teen that you just, you didn't want to get on the wrong side of, basically, just cause havoc at home. And yeah, I just had to do something to turn my life around. I was like, I can't continue on like this, I was so unhappy. And I was actually living in South Korea at the time.
Okay.
And so after my dad passed, it was 6 months. It was so bad in the UK, really bad at home. We were all grieving. It was just not a very nice time. And I found this job, so I decided to move. And it was out there where I started learning more about myself and their South Koreans and the Asian culture. Their first religion is Christianity, and then it's Buddhism.
Mm.
So I found the teachings of Buddhism and the scriptures and their way of life. It really, really, really spoke to me and really resonated with me. I felt like when I went to the temples and I was reading the books and learning about meditation and breath work and the breath and and all of this stuff, it really reminded me of my dad. And it was such a close, because my dad was I think he was just innately spiritual. He wasn't
Mm.
a religious person. He didn't follow or practice any religion, but he was so wise. And so, like, all of the wisdom that he passed on to me was what I was hearing through my whole journey when I was in South Korea.
Mm.
And it just made me it just fueled it even more. So I was like, okay, what is this? And it just made my journey just a lot deeper and just wanted to learn more and uncover more and learn more about myself and learn more about the Buddhist culture and Buddhism in general.
So was Buddhism and spirituality essentially the key to finding that lightness within you after being
Yeah,
such a
definitely.
dark patch?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what was it about Buddhism itself though? Because I only ask this because like it is a religion that I'm so drawn to. Like I
Mhm.
have spent hours just sat in a temple in Thailand before and just watching
Mhm.
people and just in my own world. And it's one of those things where I feel the most comfortable in a Buddhist temple than I do in like a mandir or a gurdwara or
Mhm.
anything like that, right? And I don't know what it is. And I had one of my biggest spiritual awakenings climbing what is called Big Buddha Mountain in Phuket. And I've spoken about this a few times, but it's a 65-foot big white statue of Buddha, and you can't see him until the last corner. And I don't know what happened when I turned that corner, but I was in floods of tears, and it was like God was knocking at my door saying, "Wake the F up, Urashi. Like, wake up. Like, you're living like this life that isn't for you." And it changed my life, really. But so, yes, what is it about Buddhism for you?
I love that. Sorry, I just got goosebumps listening to that. I love that, and I can totally
That's why
like
I'm taking a
relate.
group of girls
Yeah,
out there in April to
amazing.
do the whole.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't wait.
Yeah. I have to, I wouldn't call Buddhism a religion because it's a
Mm,
very different way to, if we think about Hinduism or Islam or
mm,
Christianity, like with Buddhism, it's more a way of life and a way
yeah,
of being as opposed to following a set of rules and teachings. And Buddhism's really about non-attachment and not having an attachment to your surroundings and to the ego and to materialistic things. And I don't know, that's what resonates with me. It was more about Buddhism. I felt like Buddhism really taught you how to come back to
that,
yourself, if that makes sense. It's all about being yourself and being a part of this world with compassion and humility and kindness for those around you. And that's what really spoke to me because it's all about being in service to those around you and being essentially just a good human being. And I know when we talk about religion, when we look at all religion, that's the fundamental piece, right? It's all about just being a good human. If you
yeah,
look
I
at,
guess so. Mm,
I know what you mean, but like then it's kind of translated and projected in a different way
mm,
depending on whose hands it is in, And I just like that there wasn't this attachment to anything when it came to their teachings and their scriptures. It was all about just letting go and surrendering and trusting and listening and coming into stillness and learning how to connect with your breath. And yeah, it was just that's what I found really spoke to me, I guess. It really taught me how to be me without everything else going on around me,
yeah.
and without all of the other noise.
Yeah. So it sounds like that journey to self and that journey inwards really led to you learning about you and your truth. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
So let's talk about you and your sexuality, if that's okay, because it's not
Hmm.
often you come across someone who's so open about their sexuality. I mean, as a queer Asian woman, I don't think I've met one before you, if I'm honest with you. So how
Hmm.
did that, like, I know it sounds weird to say how did that come about, but how did you figure it out?
I think my whole since that point of being in South Korea and with the passing of my dad, I feel like been a slow like uncovering and peeling back the layers of who I am.
Mm,
And like I said, there's so much noise around who we are, how we should be, how we should behave, how we should think, and all of this stuff. And I think it was like 4 or 5 years later, I started then really reevaluating my relationship status and like my relationships with people and with men in particular. And I was just like, something's not right here. And I had always, my relationship history was very volatile, very horrible,
mm,
very toxic. I was always found myself in really unhealthy relationships.
okay.
My dating history was just like horrific. Like honestly, it's just been so bad.
Me too, darling.
And when I really started unpicking that and really, again, because I'm such a curious person, I love to learn and I'm not afraid to ask big questions and be curious and get to know myself on a deeper level. Like, don't get me wrong, it's been really fucking hard to do that and really look at yourself in the mirror and think about what is it about me? What are the mistakes that I've made? Like, it's so easy to put the blame and victimize yourself in a way and be like, oh, that happened to me, and why is this happening to me, and blah 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 blah. And I could have done that, and I could have stayed in that narrative, but I chose to like just face it head on and really just start questioning what it was and what I wanted out of life. And the more I got to know myself and understand myself and go on my own self-love journey, I really wanted to call in a healthy relationship. I wasn't
Mm.
looking specifically for like I wasn't looking for a relationship. I just knew at some point in my life that's what I would like.
Yeah.
So I started just doing the work on myself. And yeah, I think the more how do I say this? Me, I was looking for a person and a partner as opposed to, you know, I want a husband, or I
Yeah.
want, because before I met my partner, I'd always been with men and always been in relationships with men.
Yeah.
And I don't know what it was, but I was really thinking about the person. I wasn't thinking about the exterior. I feel like
Mm.
we get so caught up in what the physicalities and what the exterior needs to look like and needs to be. I really kind of, and again, it wasn't really an intentional thing. It's just how my journey went when I was kind of doing this
It wasn't
work.
like you had this vision like, oh, I'm kind of done with men and now I'm going to try women.
Yeah, exactly. It wasn't that at all.
I
On the
mean,
contrary, it might seem like that, but it really
were you
was.
ever okay? So before you go on, like,
Yeah.
were you ever bi-curious before this relationship came along or this
No,
person came along? No.
no,
Wow,
no.
I have been,
No.
and I've kissed women. It's like, well, back at uni, but like, do you know what I mean? Like, I have been
Yeah.
bi-curious. So you
Yeah.
went.
No, no. And I think that
Wow.
goes down to our programming, right? We're taught, and I don't know what it was like for you growing up and with your friendship groups, but I was never like really like quote unquote exposed to, queer relationships or gay relationships. I never knew anybody that was queer or gay or lesbian or
The
bi.
first guy I fell in love with. I was 16, he was 18, and he was totally gay. He played Kaniki in the school production of Grease. He knows this, and we have sat in Brighton Beach and we have exactly the same taste in men. It's ridiculous. He
That's
always
really
wins though in Brighton, you know what I'm saying?
well, I hadn't met anyone. I hadn't been around anyone. I don't, not that I can remember anyway. And
But wait, I know I've got so many questions and I'm going to keep butting in, but you're from Manchester.
well, I'm not from Manchester. I now live in Manchester.
Okay.
Now, yeah. So yeah, my family. I've spent most of my life in Leicester, although I'm not from
You're a
Leicester
Leicester
either.
girl.
Yeah, but yeah, and now I live in Manchester with my partner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So you weren't bi curious and she just came along. I mean, how did that go? Like, weren't you a little bit like taken aback? Uh,
Yeah, more than taken back. I was really confused. I
um,
was like, what's happening? Yeah, so it wasn't. So the thing is, when I met her, it wasn't, again, it wasn't the physical. Of course, I was attracted to her. I thought she was a beautiful girl, and I still do. But it was the person. It was the person behind all of that that I fell in love with, and that I was really drawn to the first time that I met her. And we met in Italy, and
is she Italian?
no, she's half Thai,
Oh,
half
wow.
English. Yeah.
I mean, I'm just gonna say you guys have beautiful babies.
Yeah.
Make that happen. Do it. You've got a bit of a Southeast Asian look about you as well.
Do you think?
Absolutely.
And it was just her. It was just her person that I fell in love with, and she happens to be a woman, and that's all I can say about that. And that happened when I was
Okay. So see again, but in, sorry. How did you know it was love and not just friendship? Initially, because you can
that's a
love
good
your
question.
friend.
Like when you see when you I'll just flip on its head, and if you're attracted to a man, you start really fancying them, right?
Oh, yeah.
That's how you know.
Fair enough.
The way that I thought about her wasn't how I think about any of my other friends.
Oh my God. And so how did people around you take this news that you were now a queer Asian woman?
To be honest, I never really made it a thing. I was just like, this is what it is, and however they wanted to deal with it was their issue.
It wasn't like you
Um,
ever came out.
no, I don't. And this is the thing, I don't really have a coming out story. Like with my mom, it was a bit tricky, obviously, because your parents have an idea of and an expectation of you, don't they? And they have these ideologies of like what you're going to be when you're older and who you're going to marry, and that always was, in my mom's eyes, a man.
Mhm.
Even in my head, I thought I might get married to a guy, but it actually makes sense that I'm not.
Why do you say it like that?
Because when I think back to how I feel about the way that I am with my partner, it just makes sense that no other
Like you were
relationship.
never like that with anyone else.
No,
Mm.
no. And I don't think I'll ever feel like that with a man, to be honest with you.
Yeah. I think for me, a good relationship is obviously, as I told you earlier, I'm in this new relationship. It's like a couple of months in, etc. But no one has ever made me feel as safe as does.
Mhm.
I have no anxiety about worrying about
Mhm.
where he is, what he's doing, blah, 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 blah. And I feel so safe with him. And that makes me
Mhm.
love him even more. And yes, I have used that word already 2 months in. Supposedly, I used it in my sleep and he heard. But yeah, I think the biggest thing for anyone, whatever relationship you're in, has to be that feeling safe, feeling secure, and no anxiety.
Yes, exactly, exactly. And that's exactly what it was with her. It was just that real feeling of safety that I've never felt before.
Mm.
And it wasn't, don't get me wrong, like it's been, I don't think relationships, I feel like relationships are so romanticized in the media and on TV and things like that. And that's not real life. And it's unfortunate, really, that we're kind of blindsided by this like romantic fairy tale story that we're fed. And actually, relationships and any good and healthy relationship takes work.
It does.
And it takes the both of you to put the work in and also just go through the ugly parts together and be able to communicate that with each other but also know and understand that you're human and you're going to make mistakes. It's a fine line between obviously like condoning someone's behavior, but if you're learning and growing and evolving together, that's like the most important thing, and being able to communicate your way through that.
Mm. And compromise as well.
I heard, I remember seeing something, well, not seeing something, sorry, hearing something about the word compromise. And I think it was Jay Shetty who said it. And he said compromise. And I don't know if I like the word compromise because I do
Okay.
like the way that he explained it.
Okay.
Because he said compromise is when you compromise on something, it's basically allowing something that you don't entirely agree with or want to do. One of you is, it's like, I don't want to go out tonight, or she wants to go out tonight. We'll compromise and we'll go anyway because you haven't been out in a while. But deep down, it's not really what you want to do. So kind of going against what you want
Interesting.
and your needs. Does that make sense?
I
It
never
depends.
see compromise like that. I always think it will come
Hmm.
up with another solution together. That's how
Yeah.
in head compromise.
Yes. Yeah. So when you look at it for like exactly, I think I've always kind of seen compromise in the other way, where it's kind of like being or doing something that you don't entirely want to do or feel comfortable with.
Oh, okay.
That's interesting. And I think that's definitely how it should be, like coming up with a solution and agreeing together with what you both want.
Because I think
Yeah,
if you put it in the other sense of the word, like you're doing something you don't want to do, but someone
exactly.
else wants to do it, well, then it's not a
Yeah.
compromise, we're just giving in.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
me.
But yeah, I don't even know what the question was now, but yes.
Yes. I don't know. It's just a conversation. You are a somatic mindset practitioner for queer Asian women. Is there a massive group of queer Asian women out there that you have enough work?
There are queer women, South Asian women out there. Of course, there are. And I think the unfortunate thing with the queer community, I say unfortunate, it's just there's still a lot of stigma around that. And yes, we've come really far in our history and where we are today. For me to be able to openly speak about this, we've made leaps and bounds of progress in like many, many years, but still, especially in our culture, it is not really, I don't know, it's just kind of more frowned upon. Like,
But isn't that back in the day, back in way before we were born ancestrally, it didn't really matter, did it? Like if men walked around holding hands with men and were in relationships with men and women were in relationship with women, like I'm sure I saw that on your profile.
Yeah, exactly. Before the British Empire came into, took over and
Hmm.
colonized India, queer and same-sex relationships and being like curious and things like that was normal. And then I
No, I'm
can't
just going to butt in again, but I'm just going to say that hasn't isn't actually that long ago, 75 years, right?
remember.
Well,
Hmm.
that's independence, but yeah, so say what, less than 100 years ago.
Yeah. And then when the British came and took over, because it wasn't, because their way of life, how they were living, how the Indians were living, wasn't really up to, or how can I say this?
It was
It
strange.
didn't really, it
Mm.
didn't really fall in line with their views and their beliefs. And they brought in, and then they brought in the I can't remember, it was some Victorian law, which then banned any kind of same-sex relationships and anyone being curious, the opposite sex, blah, 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 blah. They basically criminalized it and made it illegal. And then since then, that's how that stigma has come about for being queer or bi-curious
In
or
our
lesbian
community,
in our community. Exactly. So that actually hasn't come from us. That's come from being
the British
colonized.
Raj
Yeah.
and the
Yeah. Yeah.
colonization of wow, that's just so interesting, isn't it? It's kind of like they whitewashed us in so many ways. Like
Mhm.
yoga's been whitewashed, the sexuality is
Mhm.
now in the Kama Sutra
Mhm.
is like, oh, and
Mhm.
now it's like you guys go practice the Kama Sutra now. It's like what? Tantra, what is Tantra? You can't do Tantra. Now it's like, oh look, let's sell you a book on Tantra, brown
Yeah.
person. It's very whitewashed. That's insane. That's insane.
Yeah.
So tell us what it means to be a somatic mindset practitioner. What do you mean? Because some people might not know, right?
So somatics is working with the body. So having an inner, deeper awareness of the body, connecting the breath to the body and bringing really understanding yourself from within,
Mm,
listening to different sensations and really tuning into your intuition and your inner guidance and your inner voice and being able to release energy through breath work and mindfulness and visualization and all of those practices are somatic practices
mm,
to help build that mind body soul connection. And then the mindset work is I've specialized in neurolinguistic programming, which is all about rewiring and reprogramming the brain, because that's also really important, because I feel like when you look back to how we've been brought up and how our programming is, a lot of those thoughts and beliefs and things that we've had imparted on us aren't necessarily positive. And if you look at the way that we speak to ourselves and talk to ourselves and the way we look at ourselves is generally quite negative. It's all about reframing and rewiring those thought patterns and those beliefs. You can help have a healthier and more positive relationship with yourself.
mm,
Because for me, what's really important is it's not just working with one or the other, right? It's working with all parts of you, your mind, body, and soul, they're all in alignment with each other. They're all working together and
mm.
they're
I call
all on
them
the
my
same
tribe,
page.
Aisha. So I said my mind, body, my soul is my soul. It's my tribe, right? They're all
Yeah.
separate parts of you, really, right?
Hmm.
But you've got to work with them as one. And so you
Yeah,
are your own tribe, essentially.
exactly, exactly. And sometimes we go against each other sometimes. So your head's saying one thing, but then your heart's saying something else. And it's which one are you going to listen to? And it's like, well, you should be listening to all parts of you and really coming to acceptance and acknowledgement of where you want to be and where you want to go and being okay with that,
Mm,
and kind of being confident enough to follow what your head, heart, and everything says all at once. You should all be on the same page.
mm,
Because if you're going against one or the other, that's when resistance is formed.
mm,
And having resistance in your body is not going to allow the energy to flow. That's where you might find difficulties in relationships or how you go about into the world. And I always feel like the energy that you have within yourself is going to be reflected back to you, right? So everything that you see and how you perceive the world out there is a direct reflection of what is going on in your internal
mm.
body and into your internal self.
Yeah, because
So
two people could be shown the same thing or
100%.
have the same thing, but have a completely different
Yes.
reaction to that thing. You know,
Yes.
one could be very positive and one could be very negative.
Yes. And a
Yeah.
really good example of that is, and that's like a really big part of NLP as well, is, me and you could go to a party. We could hear the same music, eat the same food, meet the same people, be in exactly the same environment. I might go home and say, "Ush, that was really shit. I had such a
Mm,
shit time. The food was shit, the music was shit." And you might go home and be like, "That was fucking amazing. Like, I
yeah.
had such a good time, blah, blah." And the reason we've had such different experiences is because of our programming and how that information has been, how we've taken in that information into ourselves and what our programming has done that has allowed us to have a positive or a negative experience, if that makes sense.
It makes complete sense. I'm going to ask you to just explain to our listeners what programming means.
That's a good question.
At the end of the day, right, we know these words. We know that, programming is the beliefs that we pick up from our parents, institutions, media, things that we learn along the way. It's not innate in us. We're not born with any programming, right? We are learning this along the route.
Exactly.
But a lot of people out there might not know what we mean.
That's a really good question. And it is one that I sometimes have to come back to as well. So programming, if you think about your five senses, or you could say six senses, we're taking in information all the time.
Yep.
And how we take in that information, we take it in, and all of that information, is then stored into our unconscious mind or our subconscious mind, right? And our subconscious mind is basically like a data bank that stores all the emotions, experiences, feelings, thoughts, everything that is all kind of been fed into that. And what's been fed into your unconscious mind literally since before birth will manifest into a positive or a negative experience. Because when you think about programming, it's an order or a sequence of events and thoughts. Before we react or before we speak, there is a thought process that goes on in our brain that then leads to an experience, whether it's negative or a positive experience. I don't know if I've explained that very well.
No, it makes complete sense. Like, it's exactly the party scenario that you spoke about, right? So yeah, 100%. We have thoughts which become feelings, which create our actions and then our reactions, right?
Yeah.
So going through that process, those thoughts come from our learnt, I don't even want to call them behaviors, but just the learnings that we've had on this planet and, before that as well. Like, something you may have learned in a different lifetime, according to your Akashic records, which holds all knowledge, is within you as well on this planet at this time.
Exactly.
Yeah. Amazing. Wow. I'm loving this conversation, but I do like to keep my episodes down to like 30 or 40 minutes. I want to ask you, if someone out there is, say, struggling with their sexuality, what can you suggest for them to kind of help them get in control of what's going on? Because I guess that's the question.
It's so difficult to say, because I feel like everyone's situation is different when it comes to sexuality, people's personal experiences. There are still, unfortunately, some situations in some families where it's really taboo and really it's not okay to be queer, and it's not accepted. You don't know if I can answer that really, because if someone is struggling, it's really understanding what their situation is and how they can navigate that situation the best that they can for themselves, that's in a safe way, that's going to not hurt themselves but not hurt the people around them as well. Does that make sense? Because it's such a sensitive subject and only you will know how to navigate that situation. And it comes down to, you might be surprised about how people will react or respond to your sexuality. I do feel like a lot of it comes down to acceptance of self, accepting yourself, accepting where you are, accepting who you are, and really being okay with that before you then go out into the world and then tackle the other people around you, because we can't control how other people think or feel, the opinions that they're going to have, but we can control how we feel about ourselves and what we think about ourselves and how we want to present ourselves in the world. It's being really okay with that first, I would say.
So really accepting yourself, knowing yourself, and really getting to know yourself actually first before even telling anyone. And the one thing I read or heard, I can't remember, I think I saw it on TikTok actually, it was like, well, why do people have to come out about their sexuality? And if like queer people have to do it, why don't straight people have to do it? Do you know what I mean? Like, just because that is the norm, or supposedly, I quote there if nobody's actually watching this, but air quotes, like the norm. Why should anyone have to come out?
I did a video on that as well, actually. Even now, I still don't understand the whole coming out thing. And it's unfortunate that you still have to feel like we need to come out, quote unquote. I don't know. It's just being able to talk. And this is why I'm here. This is why I'm doing what I'm doing. It's why I've chosen to want to work with queer South Asian women, because it's such a niche. I want to give a voice to those people who might feel like they don't have a voice and be
Mm,
that voice out there and be that beacon of like, okay, if she's doing it, I can do it too. It's not so scary. Bad things are not going to happen. Don't necessarily have to happen. And it's okay to be yourself. That's what I want to like really advocate, that it's okay just to be you exactly as you are and who you are and how you want to be. And but you have to be okay with that too, last.
yeah,
That has to come from within yourself.
I love that. All
Mm.
right, what are 5 things about your life that you love right now?
5 things about my life that I love right now. I really love that things are, this is just going to sound so boring, but I just love that things are really slow right now. I've really taken a more slow approach in life because I'm always go, 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 next thing, do the next thing, want to achieve this, want to do that. And I'm just really just want to be present in the here and now. Those are like so slow and being present. That's two. Because again, it's like looking forward to the next thing. Holiday coming up, I'm going to look forward to that. And it's like, no, Ayesha, you're here. Let's just enjoy this moment right now and
Yeah.
be exactly where we are right
Yeah.
now. So being slow, being present. I really feel like I'm also just loving this. Also, again, sounds really weird, but I feel like me again. I feel like for a long time I haven't been me, and I feel like a lot of that's been because of COVID, because of lockdown. I've moved from Italy back to the UK. Last couple of years have just been a whirlwind. We've just bought our own flat, and there's just a lot of change been happening. I'm just loving just being me, going out, seeing friends, just living that like boring, day to day, and just getting back into fitness. That's another thing. Just, I've started CrossFit, so that's
Oh,
amazing.
nice.
Again, 2 years I've just been out of my fitness routine and stuff. So really loving that. And I'm just loving the things that I've got lined up this year and just things to look forward to. But I'm not in a rush to get there. Before
Mm,
I was always in a rush to get there. Now I'm like,
yeah.
it's there. I know it's coming, and I'm just
Yeah.
going to enjoy every minute of my journey
I love
to
that. And we are always so like on human timing, where actually soul timing is completely different, right? You're gonna get there when you get there,
yeah,
right?
exactly.
So another question, is there marriage on the cards?
Maybe. Sorry, I'm like giggling like a
And who
schoolgirl. I was
proposed
like,
to
I don't
who?
know. Maybe. We have spoken about marriage. Neither of us, again, this is a really boring answer. Neither of us are into the whole wedding thing, big wedding, because it holds no meaning for us. If we get married, it would probably just be for legal purposes.
Oh, okay.
We're very happy with each other. We know we're going to be with each other for a long, long time. And that's it. Just
Wow. Wow. Ayesha, if someone wants to get in contact with you, whether it is to work with you or to talk to you about maybe their own journey in terms of
Mhm.
sexuality and stuff, how do they do that?
I've got a website and on Instagram. If you go on my Instagram, there's a link on my bio and it's got links to my website and book a free discovery call with me. You can just DM me. It's up to you. All my
What's your Instagram handle, darling?
at Ayesha Coaching.
That's simple. At Ayesha Coaching, guys, if you want to get in
Yeah.
contact with her. She's an absolutely beautiful woman. Honestly, this has been a pleasure having you online. Thank you for being so open and honest about your journey and where you are and who you are and where you're going in terms of your life. And I honestly thank you for being on Brown Girl Rising. You're definitely an inspirational woman, my love. So
Thank you.
yeah, and I hopefully we will meet in person soon because
Yeah.
she lives up in Manchester.
Oh, amazing. If you
She
do.
lives in Altrincham, actually. Listen, guys, thank you so much. I will see you on the next episode, and thank you, Aisha.
Thank you.